You? No, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, that was university.
Now, I apologize in advance, everybody, because I have to go back to Macaulay immediately after introducing our lovely speaker today. So please do not take offense to me jetting off. I will be watching the video like other lovely folks are going to do after today. But I wanted to offer a warm welcome to you all. My name is Jessica Chase. I'm curator with the County Museums. And thank you so much for coming here to Mariners Park Museum today for our event with Corey Phillips. Now, before we get started, I did want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, specifically the Michisegi people, or the Mississauga, as well as the Haudenosaunee and the Wendat. And I think that on behalf of our museum team, I can say that we're very grateful that we get the opportunity to live and to work here and to interpret the very rich history of this place, of the land and of the waters, particularly the waters here. And we want to do our part to continue to preserve the legacy of the waterways here. And I want to introduce our speaker, Corey Phillips, who is very much doing his part to do that. So Corey, I'm just going to give him a very brief intro. He's got a lot of accolades we could go over, but Corey is a very prolific local diver who started, what year was it when your wife bought you?
2022, or 2020. 2002.
I was going to say, I think it's been over 20 years. Yeah. If you could complete 900 plus dives in 2 years, that would be something else. But thank you to your wife for buying me those lessons. She knew what she was doing. But yes, so you've got to.
She didn't.
She maybe didn't know the financial investment and the time investment that would come after. But you've got to be close up to 1,000 dives now.
Yeah.
Closing in.
Hoping, yeah.
Oh.
Sure, maybe.
But Corey is the former Vice President of Preserve Our Wrecks Kingston and is the current mooring director for Save Ontario Shipwrecks, the Picton. Well, so thank you for
having me.
saying, actually that was a lot of fun and I would like to come back again. So without further ado, Corey Phillips, everybody.
Thank you. I'm going to get going because I have a lot of stuff that I'm going to cover. If you have questions, just ask as we go. If it's something that's a bigger topic, then we may have a chat afterwards. I don't mind staying for a little while. I do have a little bit of an agenda that I'm going to go through, but I've gone through my dive resume here a little bit. One of the things I wasn't able to talk about last year is I have been involved with the P-51 Mustang, the part retrieval. So we've actually retrieved some of the parts from the P-51, and they are now, they were actually at the air show the other day. So there's possibly more parts that are going to be retrieved as well. So I do. Most of the pictures in the presentation are actually my own pictures. I do try and acknowledge when they aren't my pictures, but most of them are my pictures that I've used here. So this is getting back to my dear wife Holly here. I was in a really stressful job. I needed something for stress relief, and she said, "You've always talked about scuba diving. Happy Valentine's Day 2002." And it's sort of been a little bit of a crazy journey since then. So I needed a hobby that fit the bill. I learned during that process, sometimes you don't know what you don't know, okay? And I got diving, and I thought I was a pretty good diver. And then I got diving with guys that were better than me, and I was like, I have a lot to learn. So I've been on this learning journey skill-wise. And so what the skill does is it allows me to transfer the enjoyment of diving, and I don't have to think about the dive as much now. So this is my camera, for instance, right here. I usually have a stage bottle with me, and I wear doubles. So when I'm doing that, when I first started doing that kind of diving, it was like, oh, I got all this stuff going on, right? Now it's sort of second nature because I have the skills. I don't have to worry about wearing them in the water. So I don't profit from any of this, anything that I do here. Basically, I do it because it's my passion. So There's a couple of photos that I'm going to credit here just in general. Jersey took one of the pictures. He took that one of me just going into the city of Sheboygan, and that one's one of me right there that Matt Charlesworth took. The other ones are all, that one there, Matt Charlesworth as well. So all the rest of those are selfies that I did, or pictures I've taken myself. So I'm going to talk about multiple facets of the dive industry. So individual divers, Save Ontario Shipwrecks, Preserve Our Wrecks Kingston will be mentioned, Harvard Aircraft Association, CHA, Canadian Harbour, and local museums, and of course shotline diving, which is, if you haven't checked it out, it's something you should check out. We've got over 2,000 wrecks documented on that. So if it's underwater, I say we, but I'll probably dive it. This is actually back in the Mazenau right here. They basically, back in the 1970s, early 80s, when they changed over from all the imperial to metric, they didn't know what to do with signs. Instead of having them recycled and sent for steel, they just backed them in and dumped them in the Mazenau. Okay.
Been there.
So, yeah, so it's a unique, it's probably one of the most unique sites in Ontario, but it's cold, so I don't mind. That left one is me diving under the ice up in north of Bancroft. So again, I'll pretty much do anything. So we're going to talk about diving in Lake Ontario specifically. I have dove on the east coast, I've dove on the west coast, I've got a dive or two in the Bahamas and Florida, but I do most of my diving right here in Lake Ontario. That's actually the boat that we dive off of right there, and it's based out of Wapoos. So I'm going to ask, how many wrecks do we think there are in the Great Lakes? How many shipwrecks?
In all of the Great Lakes.
In all the Great Lakes.
8,000.
500.
5,000.
Yeah, you're probably closer at 5,000. I think it's between 6,000 and 8,000 is what they figure.
Wow.
Now, whether they're actually like a ship that's, or whether they're like little yawls and different things like that, a lot of schooners and stuff like that. But this gives you a bit of an idea of known locations of shipwrecks on the Great Lakes. Okay, so those are known ones, yes.
Would those all be like accidents, or would a number of them be intentionally done?
So I'll mention this now, but the ones that are in our, so I'm going to move ahead to our, this is Lake Ontario, and then this is actually from Amherst Island down to Point Traverse. So those are the ones that are known. These ones up here were generally scuttled. Okay, so they're being used as warehouses. They were rat infested. They took them out and basically took anything was worth anything off of them and sunk them. China, which should be one of these ones in here, it actually burned to the water line on its inaugural season. Okay, so it's sitting there with the whole engine basically displayed. I'll try and point that out in one of the pictures here too. So dive statistics. I've dove out here on anything between I've not done 250, I've done 175 out South Point Peter. There's a wreck out there. So temperature can be anywhere from 32 degrees to usually 70 degrees. This year is a really weird year. Any fishermen here? No? Because I was out diving in the Oliver Moat, 120 feet of water. This time of year it should be 42 degrees and it was about 47. So the lake has done some weird turns, and it does that from time to time, right? Yeah?
How deep can you dive using regular sweetheart current?
I've been to 208 myself.
Oh, okay, so the pressure isn't sufficient.
No,
Oh,
it just means it takes a lot longer to come back up.
oh.
So you need to bring the gas to make sure you got the gas to be able to come back up. Because for every minute at 200 feet that you spend, you're going to spend a minute doing decompression. So half an hour on the bottom. No, it's got to be two. It's going to be 2. It's going to be 2 to 1. So at 200 feet, you're going to end up spending. You spend 25 minutes. You're going to spend an hour doing decompressions. So usually the lake doesn't have much current, but it can be 1 or 2 knots depending on where you are. I got blown off wreck when we were diving. We sent a bag to the surface. We had a half an hour deco, and we drifted 2,000 feet in a half an hour. So there is current out there. Visibility, depending on the day, between 5 feet and over 100 feet. I like those 100-foot days. Those are usually early in the season though. So water might be 38 when we're doing that. That'd be like 1 or 2 degrees Celsius. So I should really be metric, but I'm more imperial than anything. So this gives you a bit of an idea of like what 100-foot biz is like. I was on the surface. This is my buddy Steve over here. That's the size of him there. And you can see the size of the, this is actually the China right here. So this is the one that burned to the water line. Somehow I think of Indiana Jones when we're taking and talking about like underwater heritage and stuff like that, and that's probably the first movies that I ever saw archaeology in. Really it's further from the truth, to take and remove anything from the bottom. Like I put down here, you usually only end up with a trinket in the end, but destroyed everything getting to it, right? And you know, that's even some archaeology thoughts right now. I know with I don't know if there's the Cerberus or the Terror that are up north with part of the Franklin expedition. They actually use pneumatic chainsaws to get out of desk.
Oh.
Okay, so that's Parks Canada. Okay,
Yikes.
so and that was, I directly talked to a Parks Canada person, and that was what they said is, you know, like, yeah, that's what we did, right? So, but they needed to get into that anyway. So, I heard that and I was just like, could you imagine me going and applying for a permit to use a pneumatic chainsaw? It wouldn't happen. That's all I'm saying. So it couldn't be further from the truth, the Indiana Jones stuff, right? So government agencies typically don't police or maintain these sites. So it's usually up to the dive community. It's usually up to the community partners to do this. They will act if you report stuff, but some of the stuff they do is, you know, ships drop anchors. And I know Sligo, I think it is up in Western Ontario, it's in the shipping path, and there's been ships that have come really close to dropping anchors right now. They know it's there even, right? And I mean, on those ships they would have sonar and everything else, they would know exactly where it is, but they've come pretty close. Dredging. There's a wreck over in Wellington Bay, I think, that got dredged for the stuff just a couple of years ago, right?
Last year.
Yeah, so last year, right? So submarine cables. So whether they're going out for the windmills or whether they're running power to an island or whatever, right? Now, with me saying this, they also do surveys, so they know where a lot of this stuff is and they try and work around that, but it's not to say that they're catching everything. So the government is in some ways saying one thing and making the public do another, right? So, the government just doesn't have the time or resources. So what ends up happening is, as a community, we need to actually protect. So, preserving our underwater heritage. Most of the time it's done by enthusiasts like me. It's done out of pocket, so I pay for my own gases. I pay, every time I come and dive out of Wapoos, my diesel truck takes probably about $30 worth of diesel. We pay for charters and all that kind of stuff. Camera systems, this is a pretty inexpensive one, but I've probably got, well, I definitely have over 2,000 in it with the 2 cameras that I tie into it, right? So my dive gear, I bought it. I don't have anybody sponsor me. Even gas fills for our air is usually $25 for a nitrox fill. So we do put a lot in. Helium, I bought a tea-bottle of helium. Close your ears, Holly, if you don't.
That meme up there is very appropriate.
So the bottle of helium cost me $800 by the time I was out the door. Okay, so that will get me 2 to 3 dives. So, yeah. So when my wife asked, yeah. So, and teach your kids technical diving. You'll never have enough money to do drugs. So, so the last deep dive I did, I think my gases were $450 just to do the dive, and that was a 170-foot dive. So.
Are there federal and/or provincial rules restricting access to shipwrecks?
Yes. So I didn't mention this in here, but there's 3 wrecks in Ontario that you cannot dive. Okay. Those 3 wrecks are the Edmund Fitzgerald. The second one is the Hamilton, and the third one is the Scourge. Okay. And all those are in depths that are beyond regular. If you want to do an interesting read, do an active civil disobedience. Okay, on Hamilton Scourge, they actually have radar on those, And these guys skirted the radar, came in, did the 300-foot dive, and then showed everybody the video, right? So
So
but-
they're restricted because of historical significance or just?
because they're actually war graves, and they're actually American ships, right? I believe Hamilton and Scourge, and then because it's actually a grave site for the Edmund Fitzgerald. So if it wasn't a grave site and it was sitting in the St. Lawrence River, we'd probably be diving today. So it'll take sort of tie in here as well. Anything you find underwater, you're supposed to take and report as well. Okay, so if you find something that's of significance, you're supposed to. Just isn't here, but it's Ministry of Culture, Sport, and yeah, whatever. So it's in my presentation here later on because I never remember what it is. I've always got to Google it, right? So, so why do we do this if it costs so much? Okay, it's because we enjoy it. Okay. I like to take. I'm a teacher, so I like to actually show the students what we're doing. It's really no different. Like I put some skydivers in there. That's not an inexpensive sport. I've talked to people and they go, you know, I think nothing about going out and spend $500 on a driver for going golfing, right? You know, so like this is my hockey. So I don't do those types of sports. So this is my thing. I get out and do that, right? So I sort of put this presentation together with the idea of what happens to the wrecks over time. So what's happening to these wrecks over time? So there's different scenarios. I'm going to sort of go through them. This is actually the olive branch. The viz wasn't as great that day, but the wreck's in behind, and I tried to get a picture of the anchor with the wreck and the divers there. So wood ages and deteriorates underwater. Okay, we are really fortunate in Ontario that we don't have all the things that salt water brings. Okay, and I've dove some wrecks out on the East Coast, and they've said, yeah, this is this wreck, and I'm like, okay, I see a box of glass, and I see some of this and that, but I don't actually see anything that looks like a shipwreck. This is the Annie Falconer. So the bow on it has actually split and splayed, and part of it's actually laying out on its side now. So as it ages, one of the things was asked, should we take and actually cut those anchors so that they take the weight off, because the one anchor sitting there and the other anchor was probably attached. So I think it would have slowed it down. I don't think it would have stopped it, right? So what happens, sometimes they end up being removed and then placed on people's lawns. So that's actually a picture of the Portsmouth Harbor, or Portsmouth Tavern down in Kingston. I can't remember which anchor that's off of. I know some of the people that were probably involved with that, but that's a no-no now, right? We don't do that. And I'm not trying to diss them. I mean, actually, we were just talking earlier that you know, a lot of the things in this museum wouldn't exist here today. If you didn't have a museum and you said, I want to start up a Mariners Museum Park, you wouldn't be able to bring them in because they have to have a pedigree now, right? So.
I believe you can still buy old anchors legally if you get them from a wreckers, a shipwreckers.
Yes.
My dad bought some back in the 60s. There was a shipwreckers in Deserado.
Yeah. So, but that would sort of be similar to going and buying it from. I remember, is it Minnekers or Meinekers? Okay, so going walking in there and say, I'd like a piece off of that, and they take and sell it to you, or going in after dark and you know what I'm saying? Like there's two different. You got the same part, but there's two different ways of getting it. So yeah, so anything comes. I know Helen Cooper. She went up and it was one of the Algoma wrecks, or one of the Algoma ships that they were disassembling, and she went up and got the nameplate off the side of it. So they charged her per pound for it, and that's completely legal, right? Yes. Now, put that out underwater, and then you take someone with, and I'm going to show you some pictures of that, probably next, yeah, this slide right here. So this slide is the Eureka out of Kingston, okay? Right here, I tried looking up the name of it. It's a fixed porthole, so maybe someone here knows what fixed portholes are called. So it doesn't open, but it lets light in, okay? So that's it right there. Over here, what I've done is I've zoomed in on that, and someone actually cut or disassembled it and pulled it out, okay? So that's a different story. So like if that was up on shore and you were at a shipwreckers and you said, can I buy that porthole? They say yes, and it's going to cost you this much, and they hand it to you, that's one thing. Going and actually pulling it from underwater is another thing altogether. Okay? There's one. Okay, so this is actually the same wreck, the Eureka. This here is the cabin structure right here. I dove it, we opened it up to the public, okay? It had been sort of a secret out of Kingston. What ended up happening is we went out, we dove it, we opened it up, we published the numbers the same day we went and dove it. And what ended up happening is we wanted everybody to be able to see this beautiful shipwreck. What ends up happening is someone put an anchor in and pulled and toppled that. So that sat there for 100 years, and then what ends up happening is somebody who was neglectful or possibly trying to get in underneath to get, like, we stayed out of it because we were like, this is beautiful. There's none of these wrecks that have the cabin still intact. And it was 2 seasons and it was toppled. So, but ideally, what we want to do is we want to actually have it where things are actually preserved. So this is a Katie Eccles. Everything here, all the rigging is still in place. It still looks beautiful. These are actually preserves that are supposed to be actually from it. I'm not sure whether they are, but so what's supposed to happen is ideally we should be able to go and visit these wrecks and no damage happen to them, right? So now I will have to say it's no different than if we have people walk across this floor, okay? You don't have, like, someone doesn't have to come in and scuff their feet, right? But just that walking is going to wear that. So it's the same thing with scuba diving. Us being there, you don't have to touch stuff. If you go under something in your bubbles can do damage as well, right? So there is wear and tear by just having people on these wrecks. But ideally, the stuff stays there. Just over here, there's actually a sewing machine that's sitting there as well. And there's a box stove that sits, I think that's the box stove sitting right there. So what I got into, it was about 2018. I was sitting there and Tom Rutledge is a buddy of mine. He used to run an online forum called Ontario Diving, okay? And what ended up happening is we used to go there and the forum thing has sort of gone by the way of the dodo bird, but we used to go on there and we'd, hey, we're doing this dive this weekend, hey, we did this cool dive, and we document all the stuff, right? And you sort of had this site you go and search. So what we did is we sat down and we said, let's do something on Facebook. So we put something on Facebook. Facebook is good for that, getting it out there and people seeing it. Have you ever tried to search for a post again on Facebook? So I would go and try and search for something and we couldn't find it. So what ended up happening is Ontario Diving becomes our front-facing part of shotline diving. Okay, and shotlinediving.com is where we actually go through and the research we've done. What we do is we put that in the system and then basically have that and we try and document. Okay. One of the things about Facebook is we couldn't publish everything we wanted. I'm going to show you some of the stuff that we published in the past as well. So. And not everybody Facebooks, but most people still internet. So, shotline diving. What we're doing is we're capturing everything that we see underwater. What we're doing is we're actually taking and using that, and what we're doing is we're trying to document no different than what a museum does, those dive sites. So currently we have 20. We've got way more than 22 site sketches. This was a little bit from an old presentation that I did. So we've got over 2,000 wrecks in there. I think it's up to about 50 that we've got, 40 or 50 site sketches, and I'm going to show you what those look like. And we're starting to publish stuff in 3D, which is really cool too. So these are site sketches. So the olive branch, the one on the right hand side, so this is our shotline diving, and this is sort of what we do is we do a write-up that goes along with it. It takes and tells you a little bit of the history, gives you the specifics about the site, and then we're having it as a repository for all our stuff that we create. So So documentation progress. I picked this one because Tom actually did this one. Tom doesn't have any problem with me using any of his stuff, so I don't have to give, there's actually no copyright thing in there anyways, but this is what we used to have when we went to the dive site. We'd have a laminated piece of paper and it would say this is the dive site. There are the blocks here, you're gonna come down, these are the things you're gonna see. Sometimes those sketches were pretty accurate, sometimes they weren't, right? So what we've done is we've sort of taken it to the next level, and this is what we're trying to actually put and publish now, is we're trying to be a lot more detailed. So Tom is still doing the sketches for us. I go do video, I go take pictures, and then I hand the video and pictures over to Tom, and then Tom actually sits, and he's not able to dive anymore, so what he does is he sits and sketches these on an iPad. So he's done all these on the iPad. And what we try and do is we try and publish coordinates for them, and just some of the, there'll be some statistics usually go out with them when we publish. Anybody heard of photogrammetry? So it's pretty neat. I'm doing some of the photo. These are ones that I've done personally here. This one is of the olive branch. It's interesting because we were talking about putting lines up. I went down, put the line up. I think I had the line up in about 6 minutes. The dive's 100 feet. Generally, depth plus time, I can't do more than 130. So I had 5 minutes of a 100-foot dive, 5 minutes out of my 30 minutes. What I did is I spent the rest of the dive and I just basically went back and forth on the wreck, took a video, brought it up, and that's what I ended up with there. So this is the top view of that 3D image right there, which is pretty cool. The neat thing about this is what we can do is we can go back now, and what we have is a reference. So we can go, was something removed from this? So we can go back and look at these 3D images. And the idea is that we'll probably go back every few years and actually document them, do another 3D, and we'll see, oh, this is starting to splay out, this is starting to separate, this is starting to do different things, right? So, or we can look and we go, portholes missing, right? So, so we're documenting, and it's sort of helping us police as well, right? So, let me see if we can. I haven't done as many videos as I used to do. I used to do lots of videos. But this is the Florence. That's the deck of the Florence right there. The Florence is sitting out probably right about there. Florence was a tug that was brought to shore. It was refloated, brought to shore, and what ends up happening is there's other pieces that are still strung out in the lake there. So there's like a smokestack, but it was a tug that was out there that went down. So they tried to salvage some stuff off of it. But that gives you a lot more of an idea of what the actual site looks like. So when I'm out crewing on the boat now, what I'll do is I'll pull out my, I don't have an iPad, I have an Android, but I pull out a tablet, and I can basically go through and say, you might want to go look here, you might want to go look here, you might want to go do all this stuff, right? 720 photos to do that, and that piece would be about the size of this room. So, yeah.
Is that a special camera or a special computer program?
Yes.
In 3D? Both?
Well, so I'm cheap, okay? So I'll be honest. My wife is wonderful because I just bought a new GoPro, and so but I'm just using GoPros to do this stuff. Now there is special software, so I'm using Metashape and by Agisoft. I haven't been arrested yet because we have all the embargoes. I think it's a Russian product, but anyways, it does a nice job. So, but I use it. It's about $175 US, and there's a professional copy. It's about $400, $500 US to do these. And there's some advantages to going to the Pro version, which close your ears, Holly, because I'd like to actually. I'd like to upgrade to, because what you can do is you can put down some markers for distance and stuff like that, and then what I think you can get within like 1/4 of an inch accuracy, right? So.
If I go to your website with my laptop, can I see it in 3D, or do I have to have that programmed in?
So it will show you in 3D.
Oh, well,
so,
okay.
and if you're interested, I think 3dshipwrecks.org is where we're publishing. So the ones that we put on our website, when we put them on our website is a link to 3D shipwrecks. So we had to go through a process because we're not even like a not-for-profit, right? You know what I'm saying? So it's like if we were not-for-profit, anyways, we're just doing this because we enjoy it, right? So, so yeah, that's where all the stuff is. So the whole point of what we're doing is we're trying to actually build community. And this last year we've actually started to see it, and it's starting to get a little bit competitive now, which is sort of neat. So initially, like in the last, well, since COVID probably, this has really been up and running. During COVID, we were seeing like 100 people a month join our Facebook page. So I think we're up over 4,000 that are on an OD right now. So, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to build community so we don't lose these resources. We were talking about aircraft earlier, right? And whether there's aircraft that, you know, a list of aircraft. Well, I don't know of that, but I know that we've got a list of shipwrecks now. Do you know what I'm saying? And what we do is, I can't go and see 2,000 shipwrecks as much as I'd like to.
Yeah.
So I do have to work so I can do my hobby as well, right? Like so, but there's others that are in the communities. So there's, you know, and I don't mind traveling. Like I've been talking with a group up in Muskoka area that they've got a wreck on Lake Muskoka, and they'd like to take me out and have me show them how to do the 3D.
Is that the anemic?
No, it's the Wyoming. Yeah, so is I think what they're looking at, right? So initially, Northern Tech Diver was putting signs out, okay, and on the sign it says here. So think about when we're taking and looking at these sites. Some of these sites are distance from shore. Some of them are swimmable, some of them aren't. Some of them are scooterable. Does everybody know what a scooter is? So underwater scooter drags you behind, like not these ones you hold on to, that tires you out really quickly. There's a rope that basically goes on you and it just drags you, right? There's one that takes me 25 minutes on my scooter, which does 200 feet a minute, okay? And I'm 25 minutes getting out to this wreck, right? So, but what it says here is where it gets a little bit more dangerous, they put signs out. It says proceeding beyond this point exceeds the limits of recreational diving, prevent your death, go no further. And that actually came from the cave diving guys down in Florida. What they do is they put those at the entrance of the caves. And it usually says that there's a whole pile of open water scuba instructors that have died here and stuff like that, right? So both French and English. Most of these are actually zebra covered now, or quaggy mussel covered right now, but they were putting those out to sort of get everybody so that they were able to. So that was sort of the first foray into building the community stuff, right? OD was part of that too, the original forum that Tom had. So this one is actually not very far away from here, the other side of the county, I guess, because over North Marysburg Park, we'll drop in there, we'll go over to the point between there and Cressy, and what ends up happening is we'll drop down 100 feet, and I've ran line. So what we did is we each, my buddy and I each took 2, 4, 5 stakes we have each, and that's one of the stakes right there. We drove into the bottom, and then there's line that we actually use to go up to the wreck. So we were going out and we were hitting the wreck 50% of the time. Now I hit it 100% of the time. All I gotta do is hit 20 feet of water, and I swim right into it, and then we just go down and away we go. So we've been doing that for quite a little while. I've gone down, fixed the lines down in Kingston, out in the stacked hulls. On a good day, it's probably a 25-minute swim. You're out in the boating channel, so you gotta have your stuff together, otherwise you get yourself into problems. So that's part of what we've done as well. The SOS stuff, so those are shirts actually from SOS as well. What we've done is we've got the mooring project, so I'm the mooring director. What ends up happening is we're trying to put moorings on most of these wrecks that are out here. So in 2021, we did the Florence, which is the tug. Last year we did the Fabiola. We don't have the line on it yet, but the block is there. And this year we're doing the Manola, which is the half a freighter that's upside down south of Timber Islands. So what we do is it gives us a safe place to actually attach to. It makes sure that nobody's taken and dropping anchor. I've seen boats out there using them as well. Instead of having to drop an anchor, they can just tie up, like sailboats. So, can't see it very well, but that's a block, one of the older blocks. That's one of the newer blocks. We have the Coast Guard actually drop them in for us now. So they charge us a small fee. When they're driving by, if it isn't too far away, what we do is we set up a square 20 feet by 20 feet, and they just basically crane it down into where we need it. So, by the time everything's all said and done, the rigging that we have here, from top to bottom, probably runs about $1,000, including the spar buoy. So it's not cheap to take and do these, especially when a lot of this is volunteer, right? So.
Are those ice proof, those buoys?
No, what we do is we drop them for the winter. Now we have been doing a little bit of experiments by putting winter jugs on, so just regular jugs. But we usually we put them on, I think 4 of them this year, and the only one that stayed was one that should have probably been gone, which was close to shore. So, and I don't mind going down and dropping in the water and putting them up, but it is a little bit of a pain if somebody isn't there, because not everybody has the skill to go and do that, right? So, put them to the surface. So this is actually the line that we're using right now. What I was doing in the process of, maybe braid line. That'll be braid line. Maybe we could do a workshop on that at some point. Right? So. I'm trying to make it look pretty, and it isn't looking pretty. It never does, but this stuff is pretty tough to work with. It's actually called polysteel. Yeah, anyways, it isn't as pretty as I'd like it to be, that's for sure. So we did prettier, but the problem, that's actually inch, and the 3/4 inch is a lot easier to work with. So that stuff's just really, really, I come away and it got slivers from it all the way down through my hands, so it's pretty nasty. So this over here, what there is what we're doing is we're dropping a block, we move the block. You see the lift bag, it's just going down below the surface there. And then what ends up happening is, you'll see here in a second, it'll bring the jugs in. So we use the actual mooring rope as so it takes and drags them in as it's going down through the water column. This was the Eureka. Lots of planning goes into this. I think we did 18 dives to make that happen. So we didn't know how many dives we'd actually end up doing. I took and brought lots of gas with me. There was people that went down, and their job was just attached to the lift bag. So that lift bag gives you a bit of an idea of the size of it there. And I think that was a 4,000 pound lift bag that we had.
Do you have to get permission to do this? Because could this not interfere with boating?
No, because they're already they're already known sites, and people shouldn't be dropping anchors around there anyways.
Oh.
What ended up happening with this one is the Coast Guard will abandon blocks out there. So when they're going out, if they can't find a block, they'll just drop another one for the ones over the winter when they replace them. So some of these abandoned ones, one of them was years and years and years ago dragged over to another wreck. So they were planning on having one at the bow and one at the stern of the Davy. And what we did is we grabbed it and towed it about a mile away. So we had to get it surfaced. So there it is underneath me. I've got probably a 4x4 block, concrete block. Maybe it's 4x4x6, but and then what ends up happening is we drag it. It took us a better part of the day to get it like a mile, mile or two. So that's part of what we do. It's a lot easier, to be honest, when the Coast Guard comes along and just goes whoop, and drops them where we need them, right? So, but there's actually some effort that goes into that as well. So we put out things for the Manola. And the Coast Guard hasn't been there yet, but they've been out for almost a month now. So, like, do boaters come along, grab hold of them, and go, what's this? Oh, there's something underneath it, or there's all kinds of things that can happen in between, right? So this is me on the Annie Falconer. This is actually this spring. What I have is my lift bag there, just attached to the line, and then what I'm going to do is, that bag is about that tall, so I can't normally blow them up. Like if I have a little 3-footer, I blow it up, and by the time it hits the surface, it's expanded fully. That one I actually have to plug it in to my back gas and then blow it up and let it go really quickly, because it will drag you to the surface if you're not careful. So, and even like I've stirred it up a little bit, but that's me lifting the that's me lifting it out of the bottom, and so that's the silt of where it's been sitting. As you can see, I'm basically not touching anything on the bottom. So then this is the final product here. What we have is we have that line that comes from the bottom. We attach the spar buoy out here, which we attach the boat to. So it gives us a nice safe way. Then what used to happen in the old days, what they do is they throw an anchor overboard, or they throw a grappling hook or whatever, and then they drag it where they thought it should be until they snag down something. They go down and see if there's something there. So this is how we, as silly as it seems, putting something there to bring more divers there actually takes and protects it, because like I said in one of the beginning slides, if it's there, someone will dive it. So again, it's one of the ways we protect, right? So that one gives a little bit better view right there. So this is actually going to be one of the taglines, not taglines, it's the pennant line, I think they call it. And that basically goes from there, and then we basically put a line through from the boat. My shots are getting better underwater. So that's not an easy shot to get right there. So this is SOS, so Save Ontario Shipwrecks, who I represent. This is their website. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, you can go and donate. You don't have to be a diver. You can go and donate. Membership's $35, $45 a year, I think. So I can't remember which. I'm going to be renewing here very soon, Holly. So. I mentioned that we partner with the Coast Guard to place the blocks, right? So preserve our wrecks. So what we did is when we had our commissioning as a chapter for SOS, POW, preserve our wrecks out of Kingston. Our area that we're talking about, they're coming out of Kingston, and this is the closest one that we actually go to, which is the city of Sheboygan, which is on the edge of where we are. And what we did is we drew a line and sort of said, this is going to be your area, this is going to be our area. We took the area that they almost never go to, right? Because it's just too long on the boats there. You're maybe 2 or 3 hours. We're 45 minutes to an hour out to the wrecks that we go to, right? So. So POW is down there to look after the Kingston stuff. We were talking a little bit earlier too, is the Canadian Harvard Aircraft Association. I've done some recovery stuff for them. Everything we do when we're recovering, anything you see with the Avro Aero, that's all done with permits from the government. You have to have archaeology permits, you have to have permits to remove anything from the bottom. So we've actually, that was actually the day that we were out looking and we found stuff. That was 2022. 2023, we actually brought an artifact up from the bottom with permission from the government. You have to renew that every year as well. So what ends up happening is I don't look after that stuff, there's other people who do that, but they go and put the stuff in with the ministry to do that. So this is part of the tools that we used right here. Shark Marine is the company that designs that. They've got an autonomous ROV that they send out, basically goes and mows the grass out there, so to speak, and looks for a search pattern and gives us points of interest. We upload it to what that's called the Navigator, and when we upload to the Navigator, it's like a GPS for underwater. So it's pretty neat. You can be in zero visibility, take and swim in a pattern of whatever you want, and you can actually re-swim that pattern back. It's pretty neat. It's like a full-blown computer that you have sitting in front of you. I was talking to the owner, I said, boy, it'd be really nice to have one of those. Thinking maybe he'd work me a deal, you know what I'm saying? He goes, oh, I could do something for $125,000 if you want it. So I was like, can you keep coming down, we'll borrow it from you? But yeah, anyways, Jim's a pretty good guy. So CHA. So what ended up happening is this is actually a picture. I did not take this picture, but this is from the air show last weekend. I think it was last weekend. What ends up happening is this is my buddy Steve, and as you can see there, we really don't know what we've got in our hands, right? Like we know that there's this object. We know that we're lifting it. We're trying to find somewhere that, like, we don't know whether it's, like, it ended up being quite light, probably 15 pounds, maybe. But we didn't know whether there was something underneath it that was buried, right? So what we did is we put a lift bag on it, we sent it to the surface. And that's, we were talking about the actual part number earlier. This is the actual part number. So it says North American, and it's got a number. I Googled that, and it come back and said that it was actually part of the P50, part of the P51 fuel system. So, which is pretty cool. So again, this is part of, Chow really would like to bring closure as well to the family. Anytime we're diving, this is a crash site where Officer Barry Newman basically lost his life. So anytime we come across human remains, diving will cease at that point, and we call in the OPP and probably the base. That's beyond my thing, but anytime we ever find human remains, that would be the protocol we go on that. So, but that's pretty cool, because I'm out in the dive boat and I'm like, hey, this is actually P51 parts. So, anyways,
Where roughly is that wreck?
it's out Timber Island,
Out
out that direction. And if you look at the, I think that there's multiple debris fields, because basically, if you, the eyewitness accounts were from different angles and different things, but there's a couple different areas that look like parts went down in. So a lot of it was actually retrieved and sat over at Mountain View. So I don't know what they ever did with the Mountain View. It probably got thrown in the scrap bin once they took all the pictures of it, and maybe they have some process for that. I don't know. So, but that was actually us. That's my buddy Steve, who we were removing the artifact off the bottom. So mentoring. One of the things we do with shotline diving, anyways, is we like to actually bring people in. This is the way I dive here. If you watch stuff on TV, everybody's always got their hands going like this and everything else like this. You know what I'm saying? And they're swimming like this, and very very inefficient. Everything we do here, it's about balance and trim. Okay, so this one he's actually backing up in the water. This one here he's doing a valve drill, but this one here he's doing different types of kicks, and then this one they're doing an SMB deployment, so surface marker buoy. So each one of those, if you notice, none of them are flailing around. You'll probably never think of, when you watch stuff, diving stuff again, you'll always look and see whether they're diving like that. So that's why I like this picture really, really well, because it shows that I'm actually in trim sometimes.
Sorry. I'm sorry. That was lovely.
I try to be, it's nice being behind the camera because you don't have to show what your trim looks like, but I do try and be in really good trim. My back hurts a lot from it. My neck hurts a lot from it too. So. This one, I don't know why it doesn't work, but something we do as well is we do conservation reporting. So these are eels. They were out on, American eels supposed to be in decline. I think actually I heard something that they're actually supposed to be coming back now. But what we do is we send these in, and we can actually count them and send them into, there's a place down in St. Lawrence looks after that stuff. And then we send them video of them so they can take a look and see how healthy they are and stuff like that, so, which is pretty cool. So conservation as well. This is actually on one of the wrecks. This is on the Comet. Comet's a double paddle wheeler, so double side paddle wheeler. But it was just down in there. We're trying not to bug them either. I mean, we're doing a night dive, so it's pretty hard not to bug them with the light a little bit, right? And then I've been doing stuff with museums as well. So this is my second, as Jessica mentioned, this is my second time being here. I've also done stuff with the Pioneer Museum up in Cloyne. So they have a little wreck on Little Marble Lake, and I've been back there. And what I did is, so those are the two things from the past 2 years. I did a little video up for them, and they're able to play that back at that museum. So what they can do is, it gives you a little bit of an idea where it is, and then basically what ends up happening is I show a picture of the wreck for them as well.
What's the wreck?
It was one that was up on the Mazenod. And I think they used it for multiple things. So I think it was passenger ferry, but they also used it for logging as well. And what ended up happening is, I think in the spring of the year, it was blocking the ice, and it went through from the Mazenod down into Little Marble, is what ended up happening. So, and got crushed by the, so I sent them videos, and sent them a video, and then they did on the left, it's the write-up they did about the wreck and stuff like that, what they knew about it. So So we're trying to actually give back to the community as well, so this is part of our community involvement stuff, so that's one you, if you want, you can go search it up. I think it's on Flickr actually, where they have the stuff that they hosted, but interestingly enough, I did that dive. It was, I did it back in about 2005 with my brother-in-law, and it was nasty. You couldn't see the T color. We had these little pin lights that we had, and yeah, I couldn't see anything until the fin just about hit me in the face. Like that's how dark it was down there, right? So currently moored sites that we have City of Sheboygan, which is actually a POW wreck. The line sort of goes down there, but we actually go to it quite often. The Katie Eccles, the Annie Falconer, the Florence, the Ray. The Ray was just actually done last year as well. We just put the line on it a couple weeks ago. The Olive Branch, the Oliver Moat, I should say, is the one that was just blocked in the China. This year we're going to do the Manola and the Fabiola. The Manola will be done this year, and the Fabiola was done last year. We have to put a line on it. So since we've been doing stuff out here with SOS, we have done the Florence and the Fabiola and the Manola. So we are the most active. We are the most active chapter in Ontario at this point. So okay, Does anybody need to go? Is everybody okay? Like if I continue on, because I've got yeah. So this is the City of Sheboygan. This is up in this area right here. So it should be right about there. Those are some pictures from it. Interesting things about it is right in this area here. There's actually a prism up in the floor up above. Shine a light through it and actually lets the light in. I've got a really nice picture I may have somewhere here of that as well. And then that's what it looks like when we draw it out. The China, this is the interesting one that's burned to the water line on the starboard side. Prop is about that big, it's huge on it, so it's always nice to see it. It's nice because it's got all the boilers, the prop, and everything else all in line, which is really nice as well. The wrecks that are out here, typically they weren't steam wrecks, so it's nice to see a steam wreck with everything in basically the way it was. The ones that are out of Kingston that were steam wrecks, a lot of times they pulled that stuff off of them. So they pulled the boilers out so they could be reused and done, used for something else, right? So this is the unique one in that you get to see the whole engine right from the prop right up to the boilers. And that gives you a bit of an idea. This is where it burned to the water line on the starboard side as well. Tom has hours and hours and hours in each one of these. So it's these drawings. He's an amazing artist, really. So the Florence, it was a tug. It was dragged into shore. Some of it was salvaged, and the visibility, except in the beginning of the year, is terrible. But it's nice because it's one of these wrecks that you can get somebody that's open water certified. It's in 35 feet of water, and away you go. This gives you a bit of an idea. There's some planking. There's the deck that I showed the 3D image of, the boiler, and then there's a sink that's over. The sink's over here. So that's the challenge. I always say, can you find the sink when people are out there diving that one? So the Annie Falconer used to be really pretty with the bow. I dove it when it was more intact, but it's actually laid out pretty good there. I can't remember what they call these, but they're the Roman numerals for the depth, how heavy the ship's laid.
Pedestal lines. Pedestal lines?
Yes. So a lot of times people go by them and it just sort of looks like random sketching, but I'll point that out when we're underwater as well. So even on a dive boat, you can sort of give everybody a little bit of things to look for. The anchor is there. The ship's wheel is here. This is the decking here. You really don't have an idea until you actually look at the drawing as to how it's all laid out. So you can see how it's splayed there. Back over here is where the ship's wheel is. What else was there on that? But I think that was the other anchor's on the other side here, right? So yeah, so it's these are invaluable. Like it makes it so that someone can go and do a dive and do them safely. These sketches, right? So this one isn't too bad. It's in about 75, 80 feet of water. There's some of them, like Katie Eccles sits in about 100 feet of water, okay? What ends up happening is Katie Eccles is known for its bowsprit, and I don't know how it hasn't collapsed here, because there's got to be a lot of weight that's on that. The ship's wheel is unique. It sits straight up in the air, and it sits flat, and then the preserves, and then there's a winch or windlass up in the front there. So the block is over here, and if you happen to be here and you're running out of gas, like it's handy to go, like I usually tell them, watch your gas, watch your time, right? So, because your depth is going to be 100 feet. So if you got to swim from here, way back over here, that's probably about a 2 to 3 minute swim. So you better account for that in your dive plan, right? So it allows us to give some things to, so on this one, I always go and get a picture of the wheel. I try and get someone in behind the wheel so I can take a picture of them. That one I didn't do that on, but, and then I show them all the different things that they can go and see while they're underneath the water. It's not cheap going out. Like I'm not sure what is being charged, but it's in the range of $150 to go out and do 2 tanks for the day. So if you're going out, you want to sort of see the most things you can see. So that's what I try and bring to as putting on my other hat here now when I'm out as a crew on the charter, right? So the RH Ray is a huge wreck. I got lost on it. Again, this is one of these things my wife doesn't need to hear, but I got lost on it. I couldn't find where the anchor was or where the block was. So we searched and searched and searched, and I ended up doing about 20 minutes of deco on that bag. That's the one that Cousteau lost the diver on as well. So.
Is the RH stand for like Royal?
No, it'd be a name of some sort. I don't.
Okay.
I could look it up and see what it actually says or not. But. So the olive branch is interesting. There's not really a whole lot here that, in the picture wise that I went through my picture. Like, there's a box stove right there. There's a pump. That's sort of off the block looking at it. And that's what it looks more like, actually, if you can see the whole thing. Oh, I thought I had a 3D of that, but that's the one I did the 3D of, and the 3D sort of makes it, you've seen the 3D of it anyways. But the olive remote, it was just opened up this year. There's an expedition that went out to it. They basically did a 3D model of it, took lots of pictures of it, and what they've done is we actually created the olive remote probably 2 or 3 years ago. It was probably one of the county's best kept, how do you say that, worst known secrets, I think, right? So, because I'd been out to it, I went out to it in 2017, I dove it, but apparently it wasn't widely known where it was or something. So anyways, I dove in 2017, last year they did an expedition out. The thing, the big feature about this one is, and there's actually some, I think there's actually some things from here that are from the olive remote. This is where it was actually struck on the side, so you can actually see the crack, right? So there's not a lot of stuff on it. There's been quite a bit that's been taken off of it. It is an interesting dive, but it is about 120 feet deep, so it takes and removes bottom time from you to be able to do that one. So. Yeah, so it was hit midship, and I can't remember the name. Nordstrom, maybe, was the one that hit it. It went down pretty quick. I've only actually dove it once, 2017. I dove it 3 weeks ago or so, but I never left the block because we were doing cleanup, so it could actually be open to the public, and there were lines that were all over the place. So I was cutting lines, and I was sending. We use brake rotors because they're good heavy weights, and there's lines on them, and I was sending those to the surface so we could get them out of the water and get them retrieved, right? So I never left an area of this size right here when we went and did that.
Do you get a lot of fishing nets on these wrecks too?
No, I think because fishing is in decline, no, like there really isn't a whole lot. I'm not saying that there isn't any, but there isn't a lot, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So you got to remember that those nets are expensive, right? So those fishermen don't want to lose those. So if they know there's an obstruction, Any commercial fishermen that you'd ask one, I would think that they would probably go around the area, but probably not, probably not go over them, so.
If you got a net down there and it gets snagged, there's almost no getting it back in. You just have to cut it up and leave it, so.
Yeah, so I suspect when, like the commercial fishermen that are out here, they know this area and they know it really well, so. Like that's where a lot of these wrecks came, the numbers came from. They'd say, you might want to go out and take a look in this area, you might want to go look in this area, right, so. The Fabiola is one that we got the block on last year. We got to get the line on it. It sits at about 60 feet of water or so, so that'll be another one that we open up for divers that aren't advanced open water. So, or on days you can't get on the big lake. So research methods. Newspaper articles are huge for doing this stuff. Marine records, or in this case I've got the aviation records, so I've got crash reports for the P-51. I had someone that paid for the money, they're getting older and they want to get rid of them, and they said, I want to give it to someone who's going to make sure it's preserved, so I've got those there. So talking to locals, I mean, most of the stuff we actually has been found because locals, there's been a fisherman and, well, I keep losing nets here, or I keep losing cannonballs for the downriggers, or whatever, right? Books have been written, so I've got quite a few of the Chris Cole books. When you're reading these, I don't read them for the details, if you know what I'm saying, because the details in these are a lot of times off, but I read them for, there's something out by Timber Island, there's something out by Main Duck Island, so the coordinates in these, sometimes they went from LORAN, the LORAN system, to GPS to, but it is a good way of researching and getting a little bit of an idea. This one, do you guys have this one in here? This is Dan Buchanan. I think you do. So Dan Buchanan, he's an author. And then this one here's actually my favorite. I picked this one up here when I was here last year, but I've got the earlier version and they're different. So there's different versions of the Canvas and Steam, and they're all different. Oh, there we go. So that's actually my favorite one, Canvas and Steam. It has something about each of the wrecks. Really, it's just giving you a bit of this is the general area it went, and these are the years and stuff like that. A lot of the hard work was done by others. So that's Dan Buchanan there as well. So he's got stuff on the Speedy and Murray Canal and different things. And then Chris Cole. So legalities, I have sort of touched on this a little bit. We were talking, you can't, if you say, I want to go out and find this, you cannot do that with side scan in Ontario without a license. So you have to get a license, okay? So if I say I want to go out and find an Avro Aero model, I have to apply for a license, which the government may or may not give me. I suspect that they probably wouldn't give me because I don't have any sort of pedigree in that sort of area, right? So an archaeology site is defined as a site that is fully or partially submerged, that lies below or partially below the high water mark of any body of water. So now here's the thing is if you're a fisherman or if you're going out on the lake, like what I encourage the boat operator to do is be running your side scan all the time when we're going out to these different wrecks, because what ended up happening, a buddy of mine found the Eureka years ago, because what he was doing is he was going out to the Davy. No, he's going from the Davy to the Eureka, going from the Davy to the Frontenac, and he looked at these divers and he goes, we just found a new wreck. And they said, do you want to dive like a virgin wreck that nobody's dove before? And they go, no, take us to the Frontenac, right? And then it sort of fell out, and then they were doing surveys for the windmills. And when you're doing those, you usually sign non-disclosure agreements, and loose lips sink ships, right? So what ends up happening is that got out, and they started diving it. And then I found out that there was a shipwreck out there, and I talked to my buddy Steve, and Steve says, oh yeah, I know about that. And he goes, I'll take you to it on Saturday. So I was like, sign me up, so away we went. So, removing items, nothing can be disturbed, permits are needed, okay? Again, when we were doing the stuff with CHA, we had permission to search. So we had permission to visually search and videotape, okay? I think is what the actual thing said. We did not have permission to touch. So the next year what we did is we actually, is Walter, he put in for a permit to actually remove to see if we were on the site. And they granted us the permit, and we're waiting for the permits for this year now at this point. So you don't go run out because the fines are large, $50,000, and you can be imprisoned.
Is it similar with the States, because there's so many, because Maine Duck and, I don't know if you have them, there's wrecks right on the border.
So do you remember me saying that the government doesn't police this stuff?
Yeah.
So here's the thing: is if I'm down in the river, okay, or if I venture over into U.S. territory, I know of guys that have come up and had basically Coast Guard and everything else standing there going, and what are you doing here, right? Okay. In Canada, I don't think that they actually do anything. I don't know if it's ever acknowledged even. So.
But permitting for the U.S. side.
I don't. That one I'm not sure of. I could ask Dan. Dan is sort of our counterpart on the U.S. side. He's been documenting a lot of the stuff on the U.S. side. So I just will go there so rare that I don't really have a clue, right? So to do stuff. So now I don't know. The only thing I was trying to look it up. There's a grindstone down in the St. Lawrence River, and somebody thought that they'd be smart, and they took a great big lift bag, went down and basically floated it into marina. This was about a year and a half ago, 2 years maybe. And what they did is they got caught lifting it out of the water with a tow truck. Okay, and nothing happened at the time. And my understanding is that they have been charged under the Heritage Act. Okay, so it took time. So that's when you hear stuff happening. Like I always sort of say, don't get mad because like you don't know. They're not like unless it's more than 7 years. There's probably statute of limitations. They're not out of the water for these fines and everything else like that, right? So this is sort of redundant because I've covered all that. So I acknowledge as well here too that I stand on the shoulders of legends in this area. And if we look through specifically Chris Cole's book, Chris, I just remember most of the stuff because I use it sort of as my go-to. He'll say, like there's names like Doug Pettingale, and anybody know Doug in here? Doug's from the area. Barbara Carson. So like there's all these people that have done the research to find these wrecks, right? And I'm not coming in and all of a sudden finding new things that they haven't. I'm more or less rediscovering what they've found, right? So P51's a little bit different, like that's a completely different thing, but these shipwrecks, they've been known for years. The Oliver Mowat, which has just got a block on it, has been known for years that it's there. You know, so without these people, like I don't know Audrey Rushbrook, Spence I know, Spencer Schomaker. I was out on the boat the other day with him. So like without these people who ran charters, who did the research, my job would be a whole lot harder standing here because we'd have a whole lot less that I'd be talking about, to be quite honest, right? So what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to pick up the torch that they're setting down. Barb, I think, is in her 80s now. So like Barb was not able to go diving. Actually, she was diving, she dove the Eureka. We opened the Eureka in about 2017. So she was diving in her at least late 70s still and doing, the Eureka is about 120 feet deep. So they're doing pretty, I think, pretty aggressive dives for, I don't know what I'll be doing at that age, that's for sure. So where do we stand now? Basically, I've shown you the wrecks that we got more. We've published 3D wrecks. We've got a bunch that we've published there. There's 6 in this area that have been published. The idea is that we're going to go through and do all these wrecks in 3D so people have an idea. A lot of the other sites have models in different stages. So the laws have changed to better protect the underwater resources as well. So things that were donated years ago probably to this museum and other museums are no longer, you just can't walk in and say, here, I got this wonderful compass from a shipwreck anymore, right? The first thing a museum's going to be doing is, okay, well, where did you get that from, right? Let's do some paperwork on this, right? Like before we can take it accepted, because otherwise you sort of end up being part of the problem, right? So, because if all you're doing is just giving it to a museum, well, I can go take anything off the bottom and give it to a museum, and I'm good, sort of thing, right? So, so we really, this is actually one of SOS's things. So it's a thing in the dive industry. We're taught right from the first time we go underwater is take only pictures and leave only bubbles. Is really what the mantra is. Even with the rebreathers now, you're not leaving bubbles. So so we're trying to take that even the next step, right? So. I do have papers for a lot of the resources if you want to do more investigation, if you want to take and do a checkout of shotline diving specifically. If you want to do the shipwrecks, we've got 3D shipwrecks. Dan Buchanan, he's one of our local historians here, so I want to give him a plug as well. He's doing what he can to take and make things known about things in more of the Brighton area, but I've got thing of paper here if anybody wants any. So thank you for coming today and supporting our local shipwrecks. So.
Corey, have you ever done any diving around Pigeon Island?
Pigeon Island. Remind me where Pigeon is.
It's